Did you know that environmentalist Michael Pollan found that it takes 1,500 miles for the average fruit or vegetable to get on an American plate? That is about 700 times the distance the average American lives from a grocery store. As a strain we are putting on our planet to allocate and distribute its resources is getting to a critical point, our generation has to take the lead to find sustainable methods to our current means of producing and procuring food. In addition to my research on this topic, I am very passionate about sustainability and supporting local producers. Today, I'm going to persuade you to shop locally as an alternative to our current means of food production. We are all currently contributing to pollution, food waste, unequal distribution, while filling our bodies with chemical additives when we support the mainstream companies. Instead, we could look to local producers first and see a significant reduction in pollution, have fresher produce, and encourage fairer labor practices. First, I'm going to talk about some of the problems associated with our current means of food production. First is transportation pollution. Because the majority of the foods that we want cannot be produced locally, we resort to an extreme means of transportation. Ferguson writes that transportation and packaging generally involve the release of carbon into the atmosphere. And since carbon emissions are one of the most significant contributors to climate change, a reduction in food miles mitigates environmental damage. We are often told that individuals buying electric or hybrid cars will dramatically decrease carbon emissions. However, this is a lie told to us by large corporations. Although any and all individual actions towards sustainability is beneficial, we have to hold these large companies accountable for their enormous contributions to pollution. Due to the fact that these goods require an enormous amount of transportation, they also require a lot of preservatives, some of which are even illegal in other countries. Robin listed food additives and farm animal drugs that are either banned or restricted in the European Union, but are allowed in the United States. Interestingly, most of these additives are for aesthetics and flavor enhancing, not health or safety. The FDA justifies these additives by saying that adverse reactions are rare and that they're only possible human carcinogens. Rabin adds that in October 2018, the FDA agreed to ban 6 artificial flavoring substances shown to cause cancer in animals. In fact, the company using these newly banned additives are given a 2-year grace period to remove them from their foods. It really puts into perspective what we're putting into our bodies and how fresh produce really is. The last problem is food waste and food insecurity. Our modern obsession with aesthetics has extended into our food. According to Von Doom and other researchers, the relevant aesthetic standards concern the product's weight, shape, and size and are thought to contribute considerably to food waste across multiple supply chain levels. To put these findings into numerical terms, Tabor found that in America, we throw out about 63 million tons of food, or 20% of all produce, every single year. Food insecurity is a severe issue in our country and globally. We cannot allow ourselves to throw away tons of food when millions of people do not have reliable access to affordable and nutritious food. Now that I've discussed some of the problems, I will now get into the barriers that prevent us from seeing some real change. Exploitative labor practices make food production and consumption cheap, so there's no economic reason to question the practices of the main food producing companies. The National Human Trafficking Hotline reports that there are several trafficked humans forced into labor with coercion, threats of violence, and fraud. As a result of this exploitation, the victims are paid ridiculously low wages, and we are able to purchase products for low prices. The companies are aware of our purchasing power as consumers. While an increase in prices might encourage higher wages, these companies understand and fear that might deter consumers. As consumers, it makes sense to support anything that will get us the lowest prices, but we can't forget those responsible for providing our produce. Additionally, we are not educated on negative externalities, which are cost, monetary or otherwise, that are internalized by those other than the direct consumer. Looking directly at Norwegian aquaculture, Christian concluded that pollution, soil degradation, and disease are a few of the main byproducts that will increasingly affect everyone. We cannot ignore the realities of how we are able to enjoy such a variety of foods that cannot be produced locally or seasonally. On the other side of that not seasonal strawberry that we all love to enjoy in the winter is the tremendous loss of land, destruction of ecosystems, air and water pollutions, and the eradication of traditional lifestyles for those forced off of their land. Our culture of consumption perpetuates a myth about convenience and the need to buy copious amounts of food instead of making conscious purchases. Beneficiaries of consumer culture profit off of our ignorant separation of consumption and production. However, it is really dangerous to ignore the nuances of production like extraction and disposal because it keeps us from questioning whether we really need to keep buying. Regarding food, we are encouraged to purchase well beyond our dietary requirements. Parker and other researchers studied how food based collaborative consumption, like potlucks or family style restaurants, cause overconsumption, overpurchasing, and waste. The adverse health and ethical ramifications are just a few consequences of consumer culture that, as a society, we need to address. Although the barriers and problems I outlined paint a very bleak picture, I'm now going to offer some solutions to alleviate those pessimistic feelings. Ultimately, the solution is education and shopping locally. Educate yourself by researching a company's practices. Ask yourself, do their practices and your morals align? We have too much information available to us to not be aware of malpractice or exploitation. We should also shop locally and seasonally. There are numerous benefits of farmers markets, and I've just listed a few here. Some of them include fresh produce grown at its peak season, the introduction to new foods, significantly less single use plastic. You will also be directly supporting local producers and their families' traditional practices. Farmers markets encourage conscious consumption because you're generally constrained to what you can carry or what you can drag if you have a wagon. This really forces us to think about what we need and if we're actually going to use it. Here are some pictures that kind of demonstrate some of the other goods and services offered by farmers markets. They provide farmer knife sharpening. They also have recycling and composting because sometimes some communities don't offer that regularly. In addition to fruits and vegetables, you can get fresh fish and other meats, and you can also get baked goods. So, what can you do now? First, you can find your local farmers markets and shop there. The USDA and the PCFMA offer two websites that allow you to type in your zip codes and find some farmers markets near you. You can also go fruit picking at family farms, which is my personal go to summer activity. Localharvest.org is similar to those other websites where you can type in your zip code and they will point you to some family farms near you. If you can't do that, you can also stop at fruit stands along the highways because they're often an extension of family farms and are a great way to support local producers. And there are ugly produce companies which collect produce that would otherwise be thrown out or not accepted into grocery stores because of how they look. And they distribute those to subscribers. Some of these companies include Imperfect Foods, Misfit Foods, and Hungry Harvest. Today, I talked about why shopping locally is a better alternative to our current systems. I talked about how pollution, food waste, and chemical additives are a direct result of the exploitation and negative externalities which allow this system to prevail. I concluded by suggesting some actionable solutions to combating the mainstream industry. Imagine a world where instead of 1,500 miles, our food wouldn't have to travel farther than we do to buy it. Thank you.